Good evening. Welcome to, I almost said Cryptic Crunch. Wow. Geeky Discoveries is what the show is actually called. I'm your host, Will Schuyler. We have a good show tonight and lots of guests. So come play with my background. Come play in my little room. All right. So here's someone I haven't seen in a while. Johnny.
Ta-da! Speak the devil's name and he appears.
So I'm excited to see what you have for us today.
You ever solve a Rubik's Cube?
I love this trick.
Ta-da!
Small things amuse small minds. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm super excited because just today, Back of the Cereal Box has officially become an affiliate partner with Dunkin' Yo-Yos.
Oh. Okay, interesting. You almost had me there with the Dunkin'.
No. Not Dunkin' Coffee, Dunkin' Yo-Yos, because I use Dunkin' Yo-Yos in my act, in the live shows. And so they reached out to me and we put a deal together. And so we'll see. It's all based on how many people, click our link and buy from them. But I'm using the product. I'm endorsing the product. Who knows?
Guys,
we'll see.
Christmas is coming up, and I'm sure you guys got a lot of nieces and nephews that like to fling toys at their parents.
Yep.
Why not buy them a yo-yo? Darryll, welcome back to the show, the Geek Gumshoe himself.
I came because I heard there would be donuts, but now I'm not so sure. But I mean, yo-yos are cool too. They just don't taste as good.
Yeah, and they started as a hunting weapon in the Philippines.
Yeah.
You take a yo-yo to the jaw, to the lips. Yeah.
Yeah, you know about it.
Yeah.
The wooden ones especially. I don't know. Sometimes the plastic ones can be just as deadly, but I feel like the wooden ones had more of a punch to them.
One of my favorite things when I was no, not in the air. One of my favorite toys when I was a kid is I had a Dunkin' glow-in-the-dark yo-yo, and that thing was so cool, man. I love that thing.
They still make them. You know what? I know what to get you for Christmas.
There you go.
Man, you guys, I need to do a live on location one of these days at one of our famous toy stores. Yep. You guys would love Toad Hall.
Hey, you've got a great magic shop in Winnipeg too.
Questionable, but yes. I think you're thinking about Toad Hall as well. They do have a lot of cool little knickknacks.
Could be.
Aubrey, welcome back.
Thank you for having me back on Geek Mysteries. I was wondering if you could tell me where we could find you on Facebook and this, so we could shout out to other people.
Yeah, you can find Geeky Discoveries on Facebook. There, so
Facebook.com/Geeky Discoveries.
Yeah.
Actually, here, we'll do this. Hold on.
I'd love to get a link.
Well, this is going to be a link.
Let's see who's quicker with the... Johnny will probably have it before I do.
I think I just found it. But yeah, send that to me or anybody. Hello.
Here.
I'm going to post it.
It's now scrolling across the bottom.
Look at that.
There we go.
Yes. Love that.
It's almost like he did that on purpose.
Ta-da.
Go find
it.
Right.
We do have some chatters in our chat.
Hello.
Willow, what are we talking about tonight?
I'm sorry. Yes. Let's introduce our topic for the evening. Eventually we'll get to our topic. We are talking about the Satanic Panic again of the 80s and 90s.
Part D.
Didn't we just leave this party?
From what my understanding is it all started off in Canada with a book called Michelle Remembers.
You Canadians.
Apparently we need a lot of therapy, and
that was one of the things I was yelling about when I was listening to the audio track.
What, your hatred for Canadians?
No. The book. You guys kept referencing the book, but never referenced the title. And I know why. It's because Willow showed the image of it, and our viewing audience knows what it was, but our audio audience were like, what book? What is she talking about?
Sometimes we forget this goes out as a podcast.
I apologize. Those of you who are listening to us, I'm very weird, and these I'm showing an image of the two people who caused the Satanic Panic, Michelle Smith and Lawrence Pasdar.
That is one well-dressed couple right there.
A chilling couple, to say the least.
Lawrence Pasdar was a doctor.
Allegedly.
Yeah, was a therapist who ended up essentially falling in love with his patient, and the two of them wrote a book of their deep dive into Satanism.
Well, and he was doing hypnotic regression, right?
Yeah, which ended up being something that was later came out as false, because it essentially just,
So I have a question about this.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, you're the magician. So
yeah. So I deal in a lot of that world with hypnosis and hypnotic suggestion, and this is an actual fact that a lot of people don't understand, is that you cannot be hypnotized and influenced to do something that you would not do if you were not under hypnosis. So hypnotic regression is the same way. However, what can happen is that the operator, the hypnotist, can plant suggestions that, once the subject is out of hypnosis, cannot distinguish from fantasy or reality. So my question for you, Geek Gumshoe, because I know you've been involved in cases in Memphis as a detective. When it comes to hypnotic regression or testimony under hypnosis, is that admissible in court? Is that even considered in an investigation?
So hypnosis done by a valid doctor that understands what they're doing, it's not going to automatically be thrown out, but it is going to be one of those things that's going to be questioned. It's look, you've got a big, one of the things that we didn't talk about in the last episode was the whole idea of all of these hypnotic regression sessions. It didn't have to involve Satanism. There was a whole lot of things back during that era that hypnotic regression was bringing out, all of these memories of things that happened to people that later it was found that they never happened in the first place.
Right.
So there definitely has to be a certain amount of vetting of the expert witness that's going to bring this kind of testimony. And hypnosis a lot of times is not what you see in the movies where somebody goes into this full-on trance and they suddenly start recalling things. Hypnosis a lot of times when it comes to criminal investigation comes along the lines of more of just getting somebody into a relaxed state where their brain stops fighting against the stresses of the day and the things that you're trying to get them to remember, and allows them to relax in a way that recalls the things that they encountered and that they saw. But even that, you have to realize that once that testimony is presented, there's going to be an expert witness on the other side that's going to be telling you it's bunk. So it really is just going to come down to which person is presenting the better presentation when it comes to the content of that testimony.
And I've never been called as a witness. but I would be one of those people who could testify to the use of neuro-linguistic programming.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who don't know, because we don't talk about it a lot on Back of the Cereal Box, but I'm a 3-time champion magician. 2010, I was a world champion. And in the world of magic, there's two different kinds of thought. There's illusionists and there's mentalism. And mentalism uses a lot of what we call neuro-linguistic programming. And that's what a lot of hypnosis and hypnotic suggestion is. And so I thought it would be interesting, Willow, with your permission, to do a live demonstration of neuro-linguistic programming.
Sure.
Which one of you wants to be the programmee? I'm going to program you to do what I want you to do over the internet. Which one volunteers? Willow, we'll do it with you since you're the host.
Okay.
We're going to borrow your imagination.
Okay.
I want you to imagine that I'm holding 4 playing cards.
Okay.
We're not going to look at them just yet, but I want you to. Here, I'm going to bring this up because I'll still be able to hear you. I'm going to come center stage because I want everyone to really, really appreciate this. So I want you to imagine that I'm holding 4 playing cards. We're not going to look at them just yet, but I want you to imagine that they are the 4 queens. Queen of diamonds,
okay.
Queen of hearts, Queen of clubs, Queen of spades. 2 red, 2 black. That's important. It could mean something later on. I wrote that part.
Okay.
Here's what I want you to do. I want you to use your imagination, and I want you to imagine that I remove 2 queens of the same color. So tell us out loud, in your imagination, red or black. Did I remove the reds or did I remove the blacks?
You remove the red.
That's exactly right. Now I want you to imagine that I take one of those red cards, one of those queens, and I turn it so that she's facing you. And I slide her back into the packet.
Okay.
You've made all of the decisions. And I want you to make one last one. Tell us, in your imagination, which red queen did I turn over? The heart or the diamond?
The heart.
That's exactly right. I knew before we started tonight that I was going to be able to program you to choose the Queen of Hearts. But it's even more impressive than that. Not only did I know that you were going to choose the Queen of Hearts, but I took the Queen of Hearts out of a red-backed deck of cards. More than that, I knew that you were going to choose the Queen of Hearts and only the Queen of Hearts. And that's why these other 3 cards have nothing on them at all.
Interesting.
You have a very good imagination. Now, I'm not going to reveal how that was done other than saying that it's something called linguistic programming, neuro-linguistic programming, and that I used specific words in specific combinations to bring you to a predetermined outcome of my choosing. And that's what a lot of hypnotic regression is.
See, and isn't that also because you did it in that way because you knew that like the majority of people will pick the hearts?
No, it has no bearing what the majority of people do or don't pick. You picked what I wanted you to. You chose what I told you through my words.
And so, Johnny, what you've done is you've just provided a great example of where a lot of police interrogation falls apart. because one of the things that we're trained to do when we go into an investigation is, first off, you have to listen to what somebody has to say. You have to let them tell their story. But what happens is a lot of detectives go in and they, out of either inexperience or arrogance or what have you, will paint the entire story to the suspect. And then after hours and hours and hours of interrogation, that suspect starts repeating that back because he knows that's what the detective wants to hear. And in exchange for the freedom of getting out of that little box of a room and moving on to whatever comes next, because the experience in that room becomes so oppressive and so unpleasant that they will do anything to move on to whatever comes next, including admitting to a crime. And a lot of detectives that are really just not very good at what they do will tell the suspect the entire story. And then eventually that suspect's going to repeat it back. So what happens is you have to go in and analyze the entire interrogation to make sure that that wasn't done. That's why a lot of times a confession to a crime is going to get thrown out, because the other side is going to look at it and go, he clearly influenced what this gentleman was thinking and what he was saying by planting these things in his head in the first place.
Well, and that happened to my brother. My younger brother bought a four-wheel ATV from a friend, and he's riding it around the field behind our neighborhood, and having a good time. And the cops pull him over in the few blocks between the field and our house. And it turns out that four-wheel ATV was reported stolen, and my brother had purchased a stolen vehicle. Now, my brother didn't know it was stolen. He thought it was just he was buying it from a friend. So at the kitchen table in our house, the detectives are sitting down with my brother and asking him over and over, did you know it was stolen? No. Did you intend to buy a stolen vehicle? No. Are you going to sell this stolen vehicle? No. And then the final question, and this went on for like 2 hours. And the final question that they asked him was, did it even occur to you for a minute that it was possible that it could be stolen? And my brother said, well, I guess it's possible. Boom. They arrested him. He went to trial. And he had to serve 120 months of public service.
Wow. So did they ever catch the guy that actually stole it, or?
Yeah. Yeah, he went to jail too for trafficking stolen goods.
Did they ever apologize to your brother for it?
No, my brother was an accomplice in trafficking stolen goods.
Wow.
And they had a confession.
But to be fair, in most states, just possessing stolen property, whether you knew it was stolen or not, is a crime. So it's really hard to argue whether or not somebody's guilty of a crime necessarily by possessing something they didn't realize was stolen. But there is a certain amount of legwork that is put upon the private citizen when you purchase something to make sure that you're not buying something that is stolen. But yeah, it's just that's one of those weird little gray areas when it comes to the law where, yeah, you want to make sure the victim gets their stuff back. But does the guy that you put in jail really need to go to jail for his part in it? But,
I mean, my brother spent 3 days in jail.
Yeah.
And in night court, he was sentenced to 120 months of community service.
For purchasing something.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, no. If there are adults watching this.
Not 120 months, 120 weeks. I'm sorry. I said months, 120 weeks.
That's a long time.
So wait a second. So if I buy a car from a sweet old lady and it's been used for a crime or it was stolen, I could get arrested and put away for buy a car?
if you have possession of that car, and so here's the thing, it's a reasonable process. When you buy a car, you're expected to get it registered. When you buy any vehicle, you're expected to register that.
Yeah.
At registration, it's going to come up that it was stolen. And then you're not going to be able to get it registered, and law enforcement's going to be contacted. And they're going to tell you at the clerk's office, look, the vehicle you're trying to register has been reported stolen. So we're going to have to call the police. We're going to have to initiate some kind of action. If you haven't registered that vehicle and you're found on it, then that's the first mistake that you make with that. You haven't registered ownership of a vehicle that needs a registration to go along with it. So at that point, they find out that it's been stolen, and it looks like you're a willing participant in that. That's, like I said, it's a really weird and convoluted process.
And in fairness to the cops, with regards to my brother, this was not his first infraction.
Oh.
Yeah, and that's usually where it starts to go south.
Yeah,
Okay,
he was a known troublemaker.
Yeah. So automatically, then, yeah.
And in your guys' state, when did using child protection and child lawyers come into play?
How old was your
Or
brother?
advocacy groups, like?
Well, so that was in Ohio. He was 17.
Okay.
So he finished his community service at age 18.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So he was sent to adult court.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. But so what does this have to do with the Satanic Panic?
It has a lot to do with the Satanic Panic, because in 2 different towns in 2 different countries, we've had people people claim that sexual molestation and child abuse done by Satan worshipers happened, and police had actually had actually talked to kids, and they've told a whole whack of stories of seeing the Satan worshipers killing chickens, killing animals, and killing other kids, and being molested by them.
Well, and I know that last time you took this up, you guys talked about Damien Eccles, who was, he was the template for the character Eddie Munson in the Netflix series Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Real life metalhead who was part of the Memphis 3. And he was into Dungeons and Dragons. And, that whole case was the group of teenagers convicted of a murder in Arkansas in the 1990s. And, this is at the tail end of the Satanic Panic. So one of the reasons I really wanted to be on tonight, when I heard that you were doing part 2, is because of my own personal experience and involvement with the quote unquote Satanic Panic of the 80s. This is something, Aubrey, Willow, you guys would have been too young to really know, because you were born in 80, right, Aubrey? Yeah.
I was born in 82, but I also grew up in a small town, so
right. But around when we get into like 82, 83, 84, this Satanic Panic is in full bloom. And it was literally around every corner there was a Satanist hiding to convert your child, to kidnap your child, and offer them as a satanic sacrifice. That was a real thing that we were hearing about, and that was being talked about on the news. It was being talked about from church pulpits. It was being talked about in schools. We had teachers that were handing out pamphlets, how to spot a Satanist in your school. And I was a target of that. because I was a magician. I was learning magic. I was performing magic. And in my town, which was controlled by the Evangelical Pentecostal Assemblies of God Church, I was a clear Satan worshiper. And I belonged to the church. Our family belonged to that church. And, we were hearing those messages every Sunday morning. You talked about, hearing about Pokemon being evil. In my house, the Smurfs were satanic communists.
Gargamel and his little demons. Are you
Smurfs.
serious? I couldn't believe that.
Well, so here was the whole theory behind this, all right? And this was widespread. Darryll, you might remember some of this. Papa Smurf was clearly Big Brother, the communist leader, because he wore red. They were clearly communists because they had no currency, they had no system of government, they shared everything. It was a commune. But worse than that, they were created by black magic, satanic magic, by Gargamel. Gargamel the wizard, who had he was a witch, he was a warlock, he had a cat familiar, and he was trying to recapture his own creations to eat them. But here's where it went really down a rabbit hole. Smurfette. There were 99 male Smurfs. No female Smurfs until Smurfette came along. She was created by Gargamel to entice the boys. What a failed plan, because there were no baby Smurfs being birthed. There were no sexual escapades with Smurfette, and so the assumption had to be that not only were they satanic communists, they were homosexuals too.
Okay, I guarantee if you search the internet long enough, you're gonna find Smurfette doing some inappropriate stuff
today.
Yes,
today, but there was no internet back then, right?
So let me point something out though. In certain aspects of everything you just said, they're not wrong.
No, it is true.
Absolutely is a commune society. So you call it what you want. It's a communal society. You can't get beyond that. Yes, they were created by a guy who was a black magician, essentially. Yes, he does have a cat that's a familiar. So there are aspects of it that you can't just outright deny. Now, it was a cartoon. Was it designed to recruit kids into Satanism? No. It was just based in fantasy, like Dungeons and Dragons. And once again, we just have to put that demonic label on everything. So.
Yeah. Well, and we covered that show. We covered the Smurfs, Willow, 2 years ago? And
2 years ago? Holy crap!
It's been yeah, and we covered it, and we talked about this, and one of the things that the creators of the show did admit, that they did believe that a socialist utopia was the ideal, community. So it was on purpose that they were a socialist commune. Now, does that mean it was a recruitment, that it was propaganda for communism? Not necessarily.
No, it's a fictional story based on something that they idealized. How many times have people done that?
Little blue men living in magic mushroom houses. Okay, let's be honest.
Girl that shows them all attention.
Well, then we got the drug use issue there. They're living in magic mushrooms. Do you see how this all spins out of control? And that was the same thing with the Satanic Panic.
Oh yeah,
that's one thing that I have always enjoyed about like people who take these little facts and spin it in their own minds. There was a video a while back, I want to say a couple of years ago, that of a woman talking about Monster, the energy drink, and how evil it is, that it's like involving numerology and how many letters are in the name monster. And it's just like, wow. How do you think of all of this stuff and not apply it to your own life?
Well, so we were talking before the air. I demonstrated the neuro-linguistic programming, and we were talking, I was a practicing illusionist, a magician, and my parents were being bombarded by people in our church, in our community, that why are you letting him practice this satanic art, this black magic? And my dad, I've not talked a lot about my dad on the show, but I do in my live shows. My dad was he took it with a grain of salt, because he himself was not a magician, but he had been a professional con man and a gangster in the Teamsters. So he kind of was like, whatever. He's using sleight of hand. And that's what I did. I used sleight of hand. I would show them. My mom in particular, I had to show her how the trick was done so that she understood it was just a trick. It's just a trick. But I had a friend who was not allowed to come over to my house because he was not allowed to be in and amongst those devil worshipers.
And that's one thing okay, so this is the question that was killing me backstage, because I really want to know this. Johnny, how did your parents manage with the town having that attitude towards you?
Well, I'll tell you how they managed. They made $1 million. They became multimillionaires in their own business. Basically gave everyone the finger. When you have enough money, you can do whatever you want. And they did.
So they bought the town, okay? Gotcha.
No, we had our own community, our own family, and look, they were very high-ranking distributors in Amway.
Oh, okay.
And Amway was, for all intents and purposes, a conservative Christian cult.
Okay, did Amway also have like my foster mom was big into like the Melaleuca stuff.
Yeah, Melaleuca came after.
Yeah, that was like her thing, and so I'm guessing Amway kind of like.
Well, here was the thing.
Had different.
Well, the Amway products are the best products on the planet.
Yeah.
The best cleaners, the best detergents, some of the best vitamin supplements, best products on the planet. However, to be successful, you have to basically leave everything behind. And that means friends and family. If your friends and family don't get in the business with you, you leave them behind. Because you can't soar like an eagle if you hang around with a flock of turkeys. I heard that every day of my life growing up. And so my parents, they divorced from our family. My dad disowned his sister and her brother. My mom did the same thing with her brother. And we were just us. And then the rest of the Amway organization became our new family.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So we can actually tie the estrangement in to the Satanic Panic, because a lot of these kids that involved in the D&D scandals and the deaths that were involved, that we're kind of just been hinting on, but we really haven't mentioned names of, for various reasons, I'm sure. There was some young men that were involved in D&D and felt very estranged and disconnected from their families, and then went so far as to arrange some very dark things that later got pinned on D&D and attached to the Satanic Panic in the 80s and in the early 90s.
Well, so mid 80s. Mm-hmm. I had a friend. We're going to call him Chris. And Chris was like Eddie Munson. He was a dungeon master. He had a group of guys that played D&D, and they did get into black magic using Ouija boards and animal sacrifice. They would kidnap neighborhood cats and dogs and do animal sacrifice. And it started for them with D&D. Now, I'm not saying that that is common for everybody's experience, but there were those examples that were real, that existed, that fueled the outrage to D&D.
And as such, as connected to these young men that were, one was in British Columbia, and it was 3 different cases involving people that were going to get inheritances. We're talking $3 million, $12 million. I'm not going to mention the cases because then we can go on and on. But the truth is that everybody found out is that neither of the cases that involved that talked about D&D being involved, they had a non-existent game scenario. They were blaming for giving them ideas as to how to kill their own parents.
Well,
for an inheritance.
So Darryll, Geek Gumshoe, what were the name of the 2 twins in the late 80s that executed their parents? Yeah. They were 16, 17 years old, and they killed their parents in their bed and did it specifically to get the inheritance. But there were rumors then that they were under satanic influence. And I want to say...
Are we talking about the Von Stein case?
The Menendez brothers.
The Menendez brothers.
Different case.
And wasn't that part of their defense? That they were under some kind of influence, demonic influence?
Now, the Menendez brothers, their case ended up spiraling down into allegations of sexual abuse by their parents and physical abuse by the parents. And that after years and years of putting up with this and being handed off to their friends and all this other kind of stuff, that they had enough and decided to take their parents off the board one night while they were sitting around the house. That, in fact, that particular story is about to be covered by Netflix. The Monster series that Netflix does, where they started with Jeffrey Dahmer, and I forget what the last season was, but they're doing the Menendez brothers next.
Oh,
but yeah, I don't remember any Satanism being involved in that. That one was strictly a abuse that was never reported kind of thing.
Maybe that was like a rumor that was going around because
probably
there had been stuff like that. So
everything would have been piled into the Satanic Panic at this time, between this late 80s, early 90s even.
Well, look at this. Check this out. This is something that fueled this idea that Satanists were hiding around every corner, that D&D was a tool of the devil, and it really came down to the movie Legend, starring Tim Curry as the Lord of Darkness, the devil. And this was a huge deal. This is
Tim
when
Curry's sexy there. I don't know what. I don't know why.
Tim was working out a little there. I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Cheers to Tim.
But we had the whole thing with backmasking. You will kill your mother and daddy. People thought Teddy Ruxpin was coming alive at night and giving children instruction.
Oh my God, that was no
true story.
Okay. For the record, Teddy Ruxpin. My sister had one. Okay, I did not, and I'm going to say that those things did talk in the middle of the night when nobody was talking to them, and there was no reason for them to do nothing. And that's not that doing the devil. It has to do with programming and random sparks in the programming. Okay, guys.
And the battery's dying.
It has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with the devil.
But
okay?
but Kiss, Knights in Satan's Service, the demon, with the blood coming out and the tongue. I mean, and you had Alice Cooper that was and Ozzy Osbourne that were fueling and
Motley Crue did not help.
Well, listen, they were embracing
backwards.
They were embracing the publicity that was coming from the Satanic Panic because it meant cash. Controversy creates cash. And if they could just, use that platform, that rumor mill, that fear to hook the kids into doing something that their parents said they shouldn't do. Look, I hated the Smurfs. And I watched the Smurfs every Saturday morning because my parents told me I wasn't allowed to.
Wait a second. You hated the Smurfs?
Yeah, I hate the Smurfs.
We've got so many problems.
I hate the Smurfs because
Sorry
they're
to admit I do hate the Smurfs too.
Yeah, I hate the Smurfs because they're communist Satanists. Anyway,
that's not why I hate them. I just found the show annoying.
I can't get past the whole thing. Every possible expression has Smurf in it. I just have this image in my head of young Smurfs learning how to talk and constantly, no, you're getting it wrong. You don't use Smurf there.
Murphy, Smurf.
Everything.
Oh my God, you're Smurfing everything. I love that.
Exactly.
I love that. I want a t-shirt that says I'm Smurfing everything.
So going back to the Teddy Ruxpin.
Hey, Smurfette. Smurfette, do you want to come back to my hut and Smurf all night?
Okay, there was a whole episode where poor Smurfette was being attacked by every man, and she's like, Papa Smurf, Papa, you're the only one I can go to. And Papa Smurf's like, hi.
I'm your daddy.
I got muscles. And I'm like, what Papa?
Come hang out over my place. We'll get Smurfy.
Hey, wow.
Hey,
chatters. For the record, I think that the Smurfs is a sad story about a man who has little creatures he can't eat and he's very hungry. Okay, we're just gonna leave
it. Willow, this episode has lit up the chat.
Yeah, we got a lot of chat.
Okay, we just lost a viewer, but we have 6 people watching. Hi, everyone.
Hi, all 6 of you.
Hello, Dan Holyfield. Good evening. Hello, Carl. Hello. Carl Witzman. Donna Carly Carleen says, she's saying hi to her friends.
Yeah, they're having their own little conversation in the chat.
Before involved in this.
Before we even went live, they were going back and forth.
There's talks of tacos in the chat, and
tomorrow.
I'm hungry.
Tacos Tuesday is tomorrow, guys. Focus.
No, tomorrow is Monday.
Tomorrow's Monday.
Focus.
God, it's always tacos.
Ladies and gentlemen, Aubrey has a severe case of ADHD and time dilation syndrome.
Or maybe she just wants some
I can't breathe right now.
Your wife's in the chat, Darryll. DL Memphis. Hello, geeky people.
Okay, it was just Friday the 13th. Everything is fair game.
That one day, we're past that.
It's not Friday anymore.
Blade Thesis says hello, evening all. And then Eli T. Cash.
Eli.
I know he's. Oh, I guess he just kind of came in and already started talking. I was thinking about Red Wild.
He's talking about the cards, the neuro-linguistic programming.
Yep. And then he got all excited. What the what? So yeah, he was with me on the red card.
Ooh.
Maybe the real reason why they've had me in special education for so long. Strong imagination causing so much distress. Eli, I'm with you on that. I couldn't be in band class because I could not pay attention very well. I was so far behind.
And we had that conversation Saturday morning, and I triggered Willow. I saw her like flip out at the anyway.
I was technically it's supposed to be playing the flute, but then the teacher told me to go play the xylophones. So I guess I can play both.
Well, hey, there you go. That made you have multiple options, whereas me, could only focus in choir. So that's all I got.
I doodled a lot. My notes were okay, so learning how to play an instrument was difficult for me, so I'd always watch the person beside me playing the flute.
That's a good idea.
So did you say that your notebooks were full of doodles and drawings?
Doodles and drawings.
Okay, so you know what that means? For years, because my notebooks are the same way, and like my conference call notes today, same way, drawings all over the page, and for years I thought it was because I was a visual learner. That's not true. People who doodle and draw a lot are not visual learners; they're audio learners.
Oh.
And when you are drawing and doodling, it actually indicates a higher level of audio attention to the material. But teachers were programmed to interpret that as not paying attention. And so they would dissuade you from doing that, would take it away from you and stop you from drawing while a lesson was going on. And by doing that, they were taking away your style of learning.
In high school, I could not study for a test for the life of me because I always seemed to fail miserably whenever I did try to study. I learned that I did better when I didn't study and just did the test from memory, from what I learned in class. So you have something on yeah, I understand that completely, what you were saying, Johnny. I did somewhat well in school. But yeah, no, you guys grew up in a totally different way than I did as well, and during this time. Well, Johnny...
we're Americans for starters. So.
Yeah,
and we're Gen X.
Oh yeah, them
hose water and independence, baby.
That's right.
Okay. Wait a second. I feel like I'm Willow and I are closer in age. Okay, which is funny because we're on this side of the screen. But at the same time, we all have different raisings. Geek Gumshoe, Johnny, did both of you live with parents?
Mm-hmm.
Full time?
I was one of those
when they were there.
Yeah, I was one of those rare nuclear family things. My parents to this day are still together. And most of my friends lived with one parent or the other. And so it was really unusual for us. Now, of course, I also was raised up in a very religiously strict household. So the whole Satanic Panic thing, my parents bought into every aspect of it. But I was raised by both my parents. My wife was raised by both of her parents, who were both together up until their deaths. So, it's just, I don't know, it's a different atmosphere, I think, when you grow up with both your parents than
it really is
growing up in that conflict that usually comes with having parents that are apart.
Well, and I will tell you, in the 70s and the 80s, divorce was taboo.
Yeah.
I didn't know one single kid growing up that had parents that were divorced.
Yes, I agree. I agree with that. I remember enough of the edge of there because remember, I'm 1980. My parents were the first of all of the parents to actually divorce. And so that was from my infancy. Like as at 3 months old, my parents divorced.
Yeah, it was
So
like
I
during the
didn't know.
1980s, it just became a boom industry when it came to divorce law and whatnot. So.
And actually, I have an odd story because 99.9% of the time, even starting in the late 70s, when this was a thing, most parents, the mother got maternity, she got the kids.
Custody, yeah.
And in my case, my father got custody of me.
That's very rare.
Exactly.
Even today, it's exceptionally rare.
Exactly. He was one of the few that was made a single father, and he went into the military. He was already in it, so he had really no choice. He had to either leave the military or he had to leave me. And so in this scenario, you know, for me, I was raised in a Catholic household. My great-grandparents raised me till I was almost 4. Well, so I didn't know who my parents were. I assumed they were them. So I lived in a very Christian house, a very Catholic household. So the Satanic Panic was something, you know, even as a little girl, as a little 4-year-old, I heard about the fear of in media. My great-grandparents were watching it. They were like,
well, so
to the freaking screen about the fear of what was happening, because they were also the first generation to have a TV. So the news, they trusted every word like the newspaper.
Well, so let's fast forward. Let's fast forward to 1999. The remnants of the Satanic Panic are still being felt, the ripples. Mm-hmm. Okay. And Darth Maul is the main villain of Star Wars Phantom Menace. And I worked with a guy. I worked at a gospel record label at the time. I was an A&R director, and he was, you know, my supervisor. He refused to let his son, 5-year-old son, see Star Wars because he said, I don't want my son seeing something demonic and satanic like that. And he grew up same age as I was. He was a few years older, actually. And so he grew up under that influence. And to him, the ripples of the Satanic Panic were still being felt.
The tendrils were still there.
Yeah. And Darth Maul was clearly the next evolution of this guy. Mm-hmm. And you know, my thing has always been, well, if you don't show your kids what evil looks like, how will they recognize it in the real world?
Okay, well,
I'm with you on your thinking process there, Aubrey, and I have often questioned this, and I got into a lot of trouble in my foster home, especially in church, for questioning certain things, because it's like they just want you to be taught the story of from the Bible and not question anything. You're just supposed to believe it, and I had a hard time with that.
So I don't know what everybody's opinion of evil is, but I will say Satanic Panic was exactly what it sounds like. They put in the name. It was a panic. And if you research what a panic is, it is a human being being irrational. It doesn't matter what makeup you wear. It doesn't matter what mask you might put on or what color you might wear. To me, the true evil in all of these scenarios was the person being extreme and taking things into a level of violence that was inappropriate. And evil might to some people look like Darth Maul or a mask that has been used since before America existed as the shape of a demon. But in reality, what's evil is denying that we need to take care of each other and that everybody can do better, and that forgiveness is something that should be universal. I feel like those things are the things that should remain instead of the fear of the unknown necessarily. But I understand instilling idealism and how that can create, as Geek Gumshoe and Johnny said, a sort of thought pattern and control of people in their thought pattern.
Well, in the late 90s into the mid 2000s, there was another panic, not a satanic panic, a racism panic. racists were hiding behind every bush. And
They still
today,
are.
well,
Yeah.
and today it's morphed into a trans panic.
Yeah.
The conservative right are convinced that there are,
That it's catchy somehow.
What's that?
That it's catchy somehow.
Well, yeah, and that
not.
kids are being recruited by trans people to become trans themselves, and that is a thing that is going around right now. People believe that, whether it's rational or not. I think one of the things that we saw, because this satanic panic didn't really start in the 80s. This is a cyclical thing that happens throughout history, and it's because each generation
has their fear of something.
Because as humans, we need an enemy. We need a bad guy.
Yep.
Well, in order to control the masses, you have to focus them on a common enemy.
Oh.
And I really very firmly believe that that's what every one of these issues in the past has been about, whether it's, going back to witch hunts or what have you. It's all the same thing. Mm-hmm. We just have to find an enemy that unites everybody else behind something. It doesn't have to have any validity to it. It doesn't have to have any actual evidence behind it. If you can convince people that this is what's coming after them, then they're going to do whatever you tell them to do.
Oh yeah. It's truth. Johnny was talking about psychology, Geek Gumshoe, and last episode, Willow, we were all talking about the thought process and how you can really propel someone forward with just a little bit of information and money, and how that can spiral out of control. Turning games, fantasy, movies, music, almost all forms of entertainment, including things like this, and turning it into something that can somehow warp someone else's idealism. And as someone who did some early childhood education, as someone who has been a substitute teacher and who loves children and loves nurturing truth and young minds in a positive direction that is non-abusive, that does not turn into bullies, you want to reach kids in a positive way. It does not need to demonize anything in order to do it. One of the things that I am proud to say that my father taught me in his own struggle to become a better person was that when we direct ourselves into a positive direction, whether we're children, adults, or the elderly with Alzheimer's, when we direct ourselves and propel ourselves into a positive direction, the negative becomes less of a cloudy thing, and it actually becomes more clear because you have clarity when you're moving forward. So in all of these instances, I feel like personally, with the research that I've done on Satanic Panic, it's exactly that. It's in the title. It's a panic. There was not clarity in the moment. There was not a need or desire for clarity in what the truth was.
Well, so here's an argument that I'm going to play devil's advocate, pun intended. Because this is an argument that I have a lot with people online talking about and going off the rails about the woke agenda and how there's agenda in the entertainment industry and agendas in Hollywood, and I don't disagree with them. There absolutely are.
But here's the problem.
Well, hold on. Let me finish. Okay. There absolutely are agendas, but art, to be art, has to have an agenda. Every piece of art that you've ever seen that makes an impact had an agenda behind it. The choice you have to make is whether or not you agree with the agenda or not. You have that choice. But
whether you react negatively to that agenda.
That's right. And once you realize, look, Christian entertainment has an agenda.
Oh, it does.
Hollywood entertainment has an agenda. Advertisers on the Super Bowl have an agenda. I believe that. And when you realize that and you understand that all art in every form has an agenda, then you can see it and you can decide whether you want to embrace it or reject it, do what you want with it.
So here's where I differ in an opinion on that.
Mm-hmm.
One is that I don't believe that every form of entertainment is art. I think that sometimes
I agree with that.
Sometimes entertainment is just entertainment. And when your form of entertainment alienates half of your audience by you interjecting an agenda into it, then you start to lose ground with what you're trying to do. And I think we're seeing that with some fandoms right now where you've got people that are starting to say, oh, well, you can't be a fan anymore because you feel this way. And when you're alienating the fan base that got you where you are with the things that you're saying, I think you're making a real mistake. Sometimes an entertainer just needs to entertain. If I'm listening to a folk artist, I expect an agenda to be in it. If I'm listening to a rock show because I like rock music, I don't want to hear about your politics. I don't want to hear about your agenda. I just want to hear some rock music. And I think that's where people start to make mistakes.
I agree. I agree. Getting out of it what you can and choosing a different direction if that's not your cup of tea. I'm one of those people that I grew up in a kind of a cusp situation where I love, On Blueberry Hill. I love that music. But then I am an extreme lover of Green Day. And
that's
you put
fine.
Classical music in there. And then I love the modern house music. Marshmello. I am a fan of a lot. Oh, Johnny's face. I am a fan of a lot.
If you guys saw my Spotify playlist, it wouldn't make sense to a lot of you because it's very eclectic. Like I literally go from I can go from Christian rock to
I don't have any of that anymore.
To 90s pop in 30 seconds.
One of my favorite examples for how entertainers should approach their particular brand is, let's look at the good old Knights in Satan service. Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley have notoriously stood up in front of people and said, you do not need to ask me for my political opinion because nothing I say should matter to you. I'm just going to play some music. You make your own decisions. And I absolutely appreciate that approach when it comes to entertainment because, like I said, if I'm listening to folk music, then yeah, tell me your story. Tell me your rebellion, whatever it is you've got to deliver. But if that's not what your music is about, if your music is about partying and having fun, I don't want to listen to every other segment between songs at your concert of you telling me your political views. If you don't have the scrote to put it in your music, don't put it between the songs.
I'm gonna reach out to the general public, the fans of young artists, some young country artists, with Taylor Swift in particular, if in response to Geek Gumshoe, and agreeing with you. If I'm going to listen to Taylor Swift about how hard life is and how we feel like, sometimes we feel like we suck and romance issues, that's what I'm going to listen to. I don't want to hear her opinion on who to vote for next. Yep, okay, so I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. I feel like Star Trek is a wonderful example of marrying the idea of intensity and joy in one story, which we're going to be talking about in our Saturday coming up, which I'm tying in there, because they do delve into the mysteries of the unknown, but also how to appropriately and respond to a new creation and a new thought process and a new world and a new people. So I love that that's that way. I don't want to see Scooby-Doo slapstick on Star Trek. Okay. So I understand.
Oh, I do. The Orville was brilliant.
Uh-oh. Q was the only slapstick I will allow on Star Trek, and I don't get moody about. Q is all we need. Hail the Q.
Okay, I will defend slapstick because I live it every day. I feel like I am often a slapstick. I should be in a slapstick comedy. Like, I will walk out of my house, I'll trip on my own 2 feet because I can't walk properly. And it's just like it's every day. Something has to happen every day that makes me go, what am I doing?
Willow, getting old is not for the weak.
It has nothing to do with me getting old. It's just I'm a giant klutz.
It's okay. Some of
Talking
us
to
are.
a girl who smacked her face on concrete running to the bus and decided to just go to work anyway.
But you did, and that's what matters.
I should have went to the hospital. No, I decided to go to work.
Sometimes we just take the bump on the head and keep going. Cheers to that.
When I was working for EB Games, trying to take the video game systems out of the box, it didn't occur to me to cut the back end of the box. No, here I am trying to get this damn thing out of the box, and I literally lifted up both my arms with my hands still in the box, going, "Yeah, let you get out." Yep.
Is that on video? Because I feel like you could sell that on OnlyFans. I'm just saying.
Only fools.
This is me. This is my life, guys. I am a slapstick comedian. Just
we've broken Aubrey again.
She can't be reset.
It doesn't help that I live in the city that pretty much like welcomed vaudeville in all its glory. So I'm pretty sure that I got that spirit.
So Willow, what other comments do we got?
All right, so
A bunch of them.
we got Curious Grim Goblin. Orville isn't just slapstick, though. It's even properly covers the same topics as that Star Trek did as well. Heck, Orville covered an alien race force gender reassigning their babies due to tradition, and that is a great topic because they did a really good job on that. There is talks of the Orville coming back, so
no, it's done.
Is it? I thought
it's done.
I thought they were planning one more season.
They did one more season 3, and done.
Oh, okay. My apologies, guys.
Got everybody all worked up. Now just let them down.
But I mean, for me to completely, I completely ignored the fact that Rob Lowe was in that they played the blue guy. At the like he was at the beginning there where the guy's wife was sleeping with. Yeah. I completely blanked that he was Rob Lowe at first until the other episode that they touched on that relationship. Yeah.
Hey, DL has a great comment. I'm going to pull it up here. DL Memphis says, we have a tendency as humans to demonize things that we don't truly understand. Dementia at one time was considered the work of demons.
Which is so sad. It's extremely frightening for anyone that had to go through that.
Well, Darryll, you'll probably remember. I remember there was a kid that I went to high school with who was non-functioning autistic. And for a long time, his parents tried to have him healed of his demonic possession.
Okay, that's another thing that has always bugged me. Like when it comes to religions, they have their own type of magic, like faith healers. And I was part of a church that had faith healers, and I'd watch them, and it's like, and you guys talk smack about magic being evil.
Well, that's not magic. It's the power of the Holy Spirit through those who are. No, look, my mom went into the hospital with a tumor the size of a football in her stomach. She was scheduled to have it removed surgically. The night before the surgery, the deacons of our church and the pastor came in, anointed her head with oil, laid hands on her, and prayed for the tumor to be removed. And they went in to do the surgery the next morning. They did one last ultrasound, and it was gone. That happened.
Yep. There's a lot to be said for legitimate faith healing. We had a friend of our family that my parents stayed very close to up until this person's death, who was blind from birth. And when she was an adult, through faith healing, she regained her vision. And it's one of those things that you can sit back and make what you want of it. But when you know these people, it's a very different story than just hearing somebody talk about it. And so, I mean, there are things out there that I truly think that most people can't get their minds around, that we can't explain. And part of me loves the fact that that's part of the universe that we live in, that sometimes things happen that we just can't explain. But we don't always have to put a negative label on something we don't like. And I think that we're way too quick to do that. And we're way too quick to dismiss the positive things that happen as a result of that. But I think that, yeah, there are definitely things that happen around us that the rest of us just can't put any kind of a definition to.
Like,
I agree. As a pagan now, and devoted Christian for a very long time, I have seen things on all walks of life. No denomination in Christianity and no person with pagan beliefs that has true faith. I feel like that is the key in these scenarios, is there is true faith involved. And when you actually become a spiritual person and you have spiritual encounters or connections, you find that there is actually a truth and a power in spirit, no matter the forms of religion. There are many religions out there besides Christianity that have had faith healings. So that being said, I do believe that there is a substantial thing that science has not equated or quantified yet that has to do with not belief only, but the power of what spiritualism can create.
I think there's a lot too to be said for ignorance that falls on the other side of that. That when people lean on their particular brand of faith as a crutch, and nothing that falls outside of what they believe can be a good thing, that we become very intolerant of other people as a result.
Yes.
My example with Darth Maul. I went to Sunday school with people who refused to let their kids watch TV or listen to the radio unless it was a Christian radio station or unless it was, a faith-based film.
I was one of those people.
Well, and here's the problem with that. And I would argue against that all day long. I'm like, yes, fill your kids with positive stuff, reinforce your faith, but do not willfully make them ignorant to the culture around them. Because
unfortunately, that's the mentality of a lot of small Christian towns. My foster mom tried banning The Simpsons in our house because the Stonecutters episode she got really pissed off at.
Eat my shorts.
Yeah, no, she got really mad one day right after that episode aired because it was making fun of Christianity, essentially, like, but in their backwards way. Yeah, no, she told us all that we were no longer allowed to watch it. I would just watch it in my room. After
I'm guessing they were really uncomfortable with South Park then.
Oh yeah, that was another thing that wasn't allowed in our house. Yep.
You know, I'm like I said, I wasn't lying when I said for over 20 years I was the Christian. No Christian, only Christian music, only Christian movies, nothing else. There was nothing else. And so yeah, I got to miss a lot of music. People are like, "You didn't see that movie?" And I'm like, "No." "You didn't see that cartoon?" No. I was not in that space. I was in a very closed community, and I followed that community very strictly.
So
And
here's another angle on that, because I can remember during the whole Satanic Panic thing, especially when it came to rock music, that there were people that were, you know, we talked last time about the people that were doing tours and that were like appearing at churches and talking about this. We had a speaker that came out against Christian rock. So even Christian music was being targeted by these people. And they would just flat out make up stories about it that had no basis in truth.
that's the
just
worst
to
part.
promote their agenda.
If your hair's too long, there's sin in your heart.
Yep.
Get it cut today. Make a brand new start.
Oh my God.
That's a real song by a real gospel group. If your hair's too long, there's sin in your heart.
Yep. Just point him at that picture of Jesus on the wall and talk about that.
It was the saddest points in the churches that I went to, is that we would lose people over the most juvenile, small thing. They didn't need to be lost over that. You know, that's not the hill to die on. The hill to die on is you know, the religious aspect, the bottom line, the love that was proclaimed in the second book. Again, you know, I know the book from beginning to end. I believe that Satanic Panic really put a hindrance, not the other way around. I feel they really hit the religion hard, Christianity, because it deflected in the wrong directions.
Oh yeah, it made people look like idiots.
Yeah, and it kind of proved that the other side might be right and push people in the wrong direction sometimes.
It still does.
It's really not the religion that becomes the problem. It's the people
Yes.
within the religion that are the issue. So.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. But hey, look, we're 17 minutes over.
It happens.
Typical of our show. We lose track. I know, Johnny, you need to take off right away, but where can we find you on social media?
Well, the easiest way is right at my website, johnnybeyond.com. And from there, you can link to my books, my live shows, and of course, Back of the Cereal Box every Saturday morning, where we jump in our pajamas, grab a big bowl of cereal, and gather together in the virtual rec room to celebrate the fun of the Saturday mornings of our youth. Cartoons, comic books, kaiju movies. That's where you can find me. I'm Johnny. I'm done. Ta-da!
Aubrey, where can we find you on social media?
You can find me at Miss Kindred Ivy on Instagram. I'm 90% of the time I'm there. I'm also in Dawning Even K and Aubrey Cavitt on Facebook. Just shoot me a message if you would like a costume character, a face painter, someone to help you with the party, or just to chat, because I will be starting my own podcast soon. Random Acts of Aubrey.
Awesome. Geek Gumshoe, any chance that the Murdering Crows will come back?
Yeah. So interesting story about that. We are in the process right now of working with a couple of new potential members to do a show at the end of next month. We will not be coming back with the same name. It's not going to be the same band. It is going to be a rebranding and a little bit of a restructuring. But DL and I and one of our other former members are planning on we're trying to do something. In the next week or so, we're going to know if it's going to be a viable option. But we are absolutely looking at trying to get that back on its feet.
All right, keep me posted, because I would love to have you guys perform in any shape, way, or form. If there's a way that we can get you in a studio somewhere and have you play live, or even if you guys just jam out to a video, I want to see it. All right, where can people find you?
I think I've still got Instagram. I haven't done much with that lately. I've been focused on some other projects, and I think I'm still on YouTube. But that you can just go search for Geek Gumshoe and see what's out there.
Excellent. And so let's promote the patreon.com/cerealboxpodcast.
Send us money.
That's where you guys can, if you guys want to see us get better technology. Yeah.
As Johnny always said, if you like the show, send money. If you don't like the show, send more money so we can get better.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes. And also, we thank you for paying attention, being in the comments section, and being in our Patreon.
And you guys can find me all over social media. I am the social media socialite. So yeah, you guys can find the show at both YouTube and Facebook. And hopefully I can get the Instagram live working properly. Johnny, you're muted.
I said good luck with that one.
I know. I have to make a video that goes a little bit longer than 10 seconds so that I can actually take the time to log into Instagram and do that whole shtick.
Wait a minute. Geek Gumshoe has some kind of demonic presence on film with him on camera.
He's not a demon. It's a kaiju.
Kaiju!
I thought that was a shark at first.
He's a curious kaiju.
Love that.
Okay, so Geek Gumshoe's wife is DL Memphis. You can find her on Ice Cream Queens, and often him and Joey will do like the background work on that show. So make sure you guys subscribe to them and like and share all our videos when you get a chance, and we'll see you on the flip side.
See ya.
Have a good night.